Going live already?
Going live. 6
Exciting.
o'clock. We got a minute here.
Okay.
And okay. So this is the classic sort of start to any live stream where
I've been going like in 5, 4.
I know this is not like broadcast news. It's very much all right. Well, okay. So hopefully our video rates are going to be okay, but we're not going to be jumping around and dancing. So we'll keep the motion to a minimum, and hopefully the compressors will sort everything out.
I'll have to restrain myself.
All right. So I guess
Too
we're
much
live
fast
here.
motion.
It looks like everything is coming through. Hopefully it is a beautiful and smooth video for everybody out there. If not, well, that is just the trials and tribulations of live streaming from home, I suppose. Welcome to the Sensel live stream. This is our first artist talk, and we're super excited to have Matt Moldover, who goes by Moldover. He is someone I've known for a long time and is a stalwart in controller design and sound design, and just has been a performer that I've admired for a long time because he always seems to come up with something creative and new. I think the challenges of being a musician in the past 10 years, 15 years, which is kind of like spans the majority of your career, is obvious to a lot of people. You know, you can't rely on just sales or being a singer-songwriter anymore. And Moldover has kind of taken that to 11 because he does a lot of solo performances, but he augments it with a lot of technology and a lot of beats. His performances are, have a lot of playback stuff, but it doesn't feel scripted. He's just a complete dynamo with his hands and everything. So he's playing guitar and he's got his custom controllers. And then besides that, whenever he's touring, he's always got some sort of workshop, whether it's building controllers or learning about software, learning about music production. And then like when he releases an album, one of his more recent releases was 4-track. He also he did a Kickstarter for that, and then included like a little device called the Voice Crusher, which I have somewhere in this mess of a studio. Which could process your voice and just do some really cool stuff. I've actually used it on a track in an album I hope to release one of these days. So yes, welcome Matt Moldover, who is constantly innovating, constantly doing cool stuff, and of course making cool music. All right.
Thank you, Peter.
All right.
Glad to be here. Am I on?
You are.
That was a great introduction. I appreciate that.
All right, sure. It's easy to do. So yeah, so I guess the first thing, like when we were talking before, let's sort of address the elephant that everybody is like pretty much stroking and feeding right now, which is, our sort of lockdown situation, which is, of course, at least bringing us together in this situation, but is keeping us in these sort of tightly regimented boxes in our screen. So, for us at Sensel, that was kind of a dramatic change because we were really starting to push for doing more retail and getting out there in person. We had a bunch of, shows lined up where we were going to be showing off the product at trade shows and things like that. So I just kind of want to ask, how did this affect you? What were you doing? What were you planning? And sort of what have you done to sort of reduce the oh shit moment and actually try to, proceed with your life and be productive?
Yeah, well, I think I'm really fortunate in that I didn't have a whole ton of live events lined up, which is the thing that most of my friends are suffering most from, my friends and colleagues, I guess I'll say, where if you're a performing musician, and playing shows is your thing, or you're a promoter, or anything of that ilk, or anybody who depends on festivals, all these people are like scrambling and they're just having that moment you just described. So I'm fortunate in that, like, I had not planned to do any tours until the fall. Still not planning to do any. I mean, everything is kind of indeterminately on hold. But yeah, so canceled a few events, but didn't have to cancel too much. And I'm fortunate that I'm getting a bunch of studio work, designing hardware for people. So
All right,
It's
cool.
good.
So what were you doing sort of like around the time that when this sort of lockdown happened? I know that you had just done a residency at the Banff Center for the Arts. Is that right? In
Yeah,
Canada?
that's it. Yeah.
Okay. What
Yeah.
was that residency about? And was that for planning future performances or doing installation work? Because you're sort of doing a lot of this stuff, and just to catch people up that you know Moldover is not just a performer; he's also doing behind the scenes stuff for live shows, doing behind the scenes stuff for studios, custom hardware. Also, is doing installations for public events and things like that. So it's lots of fingers and lots of pies. So yeah. So what was the residency about?
The residency at Banff is really amazing because it's super open ended, and I've been doing it. This is my third year in a row that I've done it, and um, I do a bunch of residencies, like not regularly, but like that, but at schools, most often universities and colleges, and there's usually some kind of like output. You're supposed to be creating events for students or producing work that you're going to perform or do workshops or something. And the BAM Center is different in that it's really idealistic in supporting artists and doing whatever they want to do. So I usually use it to incubate like more long-term projects. And the focus this year was a collaborative new project. I was basically like prototyping new performance dynamics and aesthetics in collaboration with my girlfriend, who's a classical violinist. So we're trying to merge like total opposite ends of the musical spectrum, like, very like classical, like, traditionalist kind of instrumentalist with my, you know, building, making, performing, electronic, just trying to grab all the things and
Yeah.
wrangle them. So we wrote a bunch of music and we did a bunch of performances and captured videos, and we did a couple live shows on the way back from Canada. And so we kind of planted the seeds of a new project that you probably won't get to see for a little while.
And what is your violinist girlfriend's name?
Melanie Clapiers.
Melanie.
MelanieClapiers.com.
I'm going to put this in the comments here, Melanie, so people can look it up in the future. How do you spell the last name?
Clapiers, Clapies.
P as in Peter.
Yeah, like pie, cla,
Yeah.
pie, pies.
Okay. Clap eyes. Oh man, talk about
Hope
murdering
she's
the
not
name.
watching. It's okay.
All right, great. So this is for future live performances that you two were planning together then.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah, and writing.
Did
Yeah.
you feel that writing too. So did you feel that the dynamics there did that, because you have a pretty like energetic shows, like you have a very strong like uh very strong sense of beat and kind of like high energy type stuff. Is this, did introducing the violin sort of like move you into like more of a timbral direction or a softer side, and or did she just like, give me that distortion pedal and and let's do this? Like how did that come together?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of trying to adopt the Bay Area like startup ethos of like fail often, fail early, try lots of different stuff, see what sticks.
Yeah.
Uh, I like to call it prototyping, which isn't what you typically apply to like writing and performing music, but
Right.
we tried a whole bunch of different intersections of all our skills. And for me, it was stretching into some new territory, doing some like lighting design with custom lighting fixtures and like some video stuff, and enabling her with much technology. So she's playing electric violin for the first time. Set her up with this really interesting new piece of software called ALK, which is like an arranged live looping um, software tool, which is really fascinating because it's so specific to this one kind of looping, and it's really great interface. So I was giving her all these tools and, um,
Yeah.
helping her get those set up. And, so I think more challenging on a technical side for her. And for me, it was more about being more comfortable like in collaboration musically, because I've been a solo artist for so long. And it's because like machines are my friends. I'm so comfortable with the machines.
Right.
I
Right.
love having control. I'm a controllerist. Godfather of
Yeah.
Controllerism, right?
Yeah.
So of course it's not about having control, but I'm happy when I get to make all the decisions, at least like with the music. So I was
Yeah.
stretching out as you're kind of suggesting in like, oh, let me bend my style, let me, play something someone else has written, let me try to put lyrics to something else, something musical someone's written, just all the different collaborative possibilities. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
stretching. It was very challenging and fruitful.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So I mean, I think the last time I saw you in person, maybe at the Recombinant Media Festival, I think I asked you like, "Hey, do you ever think about playing in a band?" You know, because it's like I like your guitar playing, and it's like, oh wow, what if you just could just focus on that? And you're like, yeah, not really. But,
Yeah, it'd be hard for me to join a band. I mean, it could be super fun, but
yeah,
it's not my my practice. It's not what I've honed, and
right.
so in some ways, it feels like a limitation if I'm just one member of an ensemble.
Yeah.
Feels like it might be like super group syndrome. Like you ever see that super group Native Instruments put together with like Tim Exile and Jamie Liddell and
No.
What's his name, finger drummer, Jeremy Ellis.
Oh no! Wow.
It was interesting, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Talking to them about it, they were all like, it's tough to collaborate, basically.
Yeah. Find out where to give space. So yeah. Speaking of guitar, we could transition to talking about some of your controller creations.
Yeah.
Because that is something we've definitely worked on before and have talked a lot about before. So what's closest right now? So I mean, there's the Robocaster, there's the Mojo, or some of your classic creations. Is the Mojo next to you? Because that's sort of iconic.
Most of the stuff is over there on camera too, so I can just switch over there if you want.
Okay, let's do that.
Cool. Switching to camera 2. Whoa, hey, there it is. Okay, all right. I'm gonna move the mic too, so hopefully I won't sound like I'm echoing around the room. Okay. I was actually really excited, like setting all this stuff up, because this is the first live stream I've done featuring the rest of my studio as opposed to sitting on the computer. And I was looking at all the stuff I have here, and actually the first thing I want to pull out is something you might remember, because I don't know if the fans out there know, but Peter and I collaborated famously on Guitar Wing.
Yes.
And we are, we are 2 of a team of about 4 people who made that magical thing reality. Where's my camera? Here's my camera. Yeah. Oh yeah, just you're looking at the mini master. We're definitely gonna play with this, but I just wanted to bust this out because this is the cool thing about live stream is I can show you all the cool things in my studio. This is the prototype Mojo, and I remember showing this to Peter at NAMM like 12 years ago or something. Yeah, probably and about 12 years. Yeah. Trying to pitch you on this would be a great product for living instruments. Like people are totally gonna love this thing. And you were like all about it. You were like, wow, that thing is cool. That is really like a controller that, could be really fun. Yeah. And I think Jay was more like, yeah, I don't know. How much did you spend building that?
Yeah.
And like,
right. I mean, that's the product. That's the product curse is like, okay, now we have to make economic decisions.
Economics.
Yeah. So just sort of like, okay, just to back up for some people. So I used to work with a company, Livid Instruments, that I helped start with a couple other dudes. The primary founder, Jay Smith, was sort of like the chief there. We had talked to Moldover because we were all doing DIY controller stuff. Jay first kind of like got the bug doing DIY MIDI stuff, and so I guess one of the questions I have is that that original Mojo and your existing Mojo are both, just crazy, very personal machines. So like what sort of like, and I also can see a prototype of a prototype up there where you have several controllers glued together. Like what was the problem that you were encountering at the time that, you were like, this just isn't doing it for me. And then like, so why did you glue a bunch of controllers? And then why did you just be like, make the jump and just be like, you know what, I'm straight up building my own controller with all my own custom stuff.
Yeah, well, the breaking point was frustration with like the consumer controllers that were available at that time, because this is like early 2000s, like 2003, 2004 is when I was playing live shows with Ableton for the first time. Yeah. And you couldn't go to a music store and buy anything nearly as cool as like a push, and it's hard for people to remember a time when there was no APC and there was no push and there was no this like
or should I say a Sensel Morph?
Or should you say?
I should say, or you couldn't buy anything as cool as a Sensel Morph, for example.
Perfect example. Like no iPad, no iPhone. Right. Like it's like pre-multi-touch, like cheap stuff or affordable stuff, I should say, not cheap, but yeah, so there was nothing. So that's when I started hacking stuff up, because it was like, all right, let me buy the coolest stuff I can, I can buy. This is like a called the Frank controller. It was a Innovation Remote 25, Kurzweil Expression Mate, a Chord Chaos pad, and a bunch of plastic and DJ mixer parts.
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. So all the interesting things just sort of cobbled together and glued together. That's amazing that it still is like it's still together and it's not just.
You can still play it too. I'm not gonna plug it in, but and this was like, oh, I wish I had multi-touch. Like I had these things on a table as one would conventionally, like spread around, but it's like I want to be able to touch that and touch that at the same time. And that's what drove the Frankensteining process.
Yeah, so a lot of it was just like straight up ergonomics and being able to like be able to get all that the sort of expression with all your fingers kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly, because I'm coming from like playing guitars and keyboards and drum sets and these like intuitive traditional instruments where you don't have to think too much. You can kind of just learn to express yourself intuitively with your muscle memory, and that's kind of what I want in my electronic instruments too.
Yeah, and so that was like this Mojo is kind of like the first example of just like, okay, muscle memory, I'm gonna form it to my hands. It's kind of like kind of like the same thing that Don Buchla was trying to do with the Thunder. It was just like, okay, I want this ergonomic thing, And
as a perfect example, like I totally wanted a Thunder, but that was like a $2,000, $3,000 controller at the time, I think.
Yeah, and there were probably only about 100 ever made, I think. So
yeah, I put my hands on one once, and it was actually like it had been beat up. It was at a school, and it didn't work really well. But I was like, that's what I want, and that's actually what these things led to, and was just like ergonomic stuff that you can express yourself with on electronics.
But you use a lot of, I mean, you do a lot of like beating on these things. So it's like, it's kind of funny because it's like the choice of controls that you have there indicate like the type of activity that you're going to be expressing yourself with, like arcade buttons and so like, okay, I just need this thing I just know smack the damn thing,
Yeah, well, durability with any instrument is really fun, if your range of expression can be, I mean, ultimately it's just a button, and you could sit there and maybe that's the classical or jazz way to play it, but the rock and roll way is like, and sometimes that's the gesture that I'm feeling, and I want to be able to perform. So this is your current Mojo. You've been performing with that thing for like probably like 8 years at least. Yeah, this one is actually the prototype of the productized version.
Okay.
So together with 60 Works, largely kind of like by myself, I made copies of this and sold them.
Yeah.
Which was a bunch of painful lessons. But there's a whole bunch of these floating around out there, and this is actually the first one that came off, and it's been modified in a few different ways.
Cool.
But it is the very first, what did I call it? I don't know, official Mojo, non-prototype Mojo.
Right. Market ready, shall we say?
There you go.
So how many of those did you make then? Like 2 dozen?
I believe 12. No.
Oh, 1 dozen? Okay, about a dozen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to scale.
It is tough to scale, and I just wasn't thinking about that. I was just like, I need to like get something out. There were enough people that wanted them, and I was like, there's demand here. I should just do it, and I just kind of pushed it through to completion without trying to like, I should put a company together. I should get supply chain. I should do marketing. It was just like a lot of my things is just like, do the path of least resistance, which sometimes is not easy. But,
no, because it's like you're engaging in a lot of unknowns there.
It's kind of how we did Guitar Wing. I think it was like really fast. Turn around on that.
Oh, so you're frozen up there. Your video is frozen. Okay, now
I'm frozen.
No, you're back. Okay, good. So yeah, so that was another. Oh wait, now you're starting to freeze up there. Oh no, we cannot lose Moldover.
No, am I freezing? Poor internet connection.
Yes.
Turn off my other devices. Still frozen?
No,
I hear you.
I hear you.
You hear me? But maybe my camera just got screwed up.
I think it's a bandwidth issue.
Okay, I think it's getting better.
Okay.
Sorry, spotty bandwidth here.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that was cool. You just appeared out of nowhere. So yeah, then the guitar wing is another. That was something that we collaborated on with Livid, and that came from. So go ahead and grab your Robocaster because that was kind of the inspiration for that.
Yeah. The mojos, I'm a guitar player is my primary instrument. It was like I should put together my guitar skills with my controller skills and like build a controller into a guitar. And this is the finished production model, that one back there. This is the prototype of this one. So this was kind of like proof of concept for visionary instruments. So this I made actually instruments a little bit Moldover.
Oh no, we're really losing you there. And this is like one of the things I really wanted to dig in here.
Is my stream failing?
There we go. Yeah. So anyway, with the guitar, I think so. This is like, it's amazing because it's like that is a very collaborative thing. It's like, it's funny because you talked about as a performer, you're like, I like to have all my controls, and you're sort of like very focused on being a solo person, but you kind of like, in order to make these things, they're very collaborative because you're like, oh, I got to find somebody who can cut metal. I got to find somebody who can cut wood. I'm living in San Francisco. I don't have all this gear to do all this stuff in my apartment. And you went to music school. You didn't go to engineering school. And so you're sort of like learning all of this stuff as you go. But it's funny because it's like you just really, like the finished products are, really kind of like, it's clearly like the mind of it's serving an art. It's not serving a purpose, if that is but they're still very finished and beautiful things in the end. Like you put a lot of effort into like, okay, there's clearly a lot of thought, and that's kind of like with the Robocaster. It was like, at Livid we were doing a lot of controllers and MIDI controllers, and we loved like the ability to like have this like flexible, plastic sound, but there was also like this expression that we were sort of missing, I think, from it. And and like seeing the guitar merged with controls like that, we're like, oh, that would be great if this could blow up. Because there's a lot more guitarists than there are controllerists, from a strict business perspective. So it's just like, so here's the guitar wing. So you get that is sort of like the Robocaster distilled into a PCB that does Bluetooth. So yeah, that's all. And the funny thing is so this was before I started working with Sensel, and that thing is actually all FSR. So some of the stuff, those buttons are just buttons, I believe, but everything else is really kind of designed around FSR stuff. So you can, make some sort of velocity thing, and it has an accelerometer, so you can, guitars move around. Why not sonify that, But
yeah, that was one of my key features of the Robocaster was motion sensing.
Yeah,
because it's super fun to like,
yeah,
especially an instrument that is so iconic to use its motion as musical expression.
Yeah, it was great. Like just see, like I remember the first time we saw you with the Robocaster, we're like, oh my god, this there's something here. We've got to try to make this happen. So yeah, that was the most far out thing.
And this is awesome. This is becoming legendary, and it's cool that this had so much. I guess I'd say such long legs. Like these, I've seen Guar play this. I've seen some other famous artists. I don't know.
Yeah, it is funny because it's like honestly.
Like it.
I mean, I have to be honest, like as a product, it really did not do that well.
What?
Like, we did not do APC 40 numbers with that thing. Let me just put it.
No. It wasn't bad, was it?
What's that?
It wasn't bad, was it?
It was a tough product. It was definitely a tough product. Like, because it's funny because it's like you just end up learning these things, because like, just like you dive into these things, like at Livid, we were diving into these things like, this is a cool idea, let's make it happen, but it's so like, and it's funny because like we got that thing into Sam Ash and Guitar Center, and because their executives were like, oh, this is super cool, and we're like, what can we do? And the funny thing is like you get it into the retail store, and like it's such a weird thing, and it takes a certain like pro audio knowledge you know,
Hmm.
but it doesn't belong in the pro audio shelf. It belong, you know, just because of the way the whole retail world is segmented and works, it belongs in with the guitars. But the guys who sells guitars, he doesn't know that thing.
I mean, yeah.
And so it's
Ultimately,
like
like it's a hybrid thing, right?
it's
Like you need to
totally
play guitar, you totally need to understand some MIDI, and therefore it
exactly
is
in like
somebody who
the
has two kinds of musicians in one.
and it's so funny because it's like the guitar salesman sees that thing and is like, you know, it's like that thing is like we're looking at it from a technology perspective and an artist perspective, and we're like, oh wow, it really puts all this capability in your hands. But the retail salesman, who was really kind of the you know your
The
endpoint,
gatekeeper.
the
Your,
gatekeeper,
yeah.
he's like, I can pull a $200 distortion pedal off the shelf, plug it in, dude tries it out, and either leaves with it or doesn't. With this thing, it's like, well, you can do all this cool shit, and you know, and there's like this whole level of like intellect that, you know, not that they're not capable of, but this like they're not going to apply to the position that they're in, you know.
Well, I just think it's ahead of its time. I mean, the fact that you're pointing to like brick and mortar retail as the model for selling guitar products, you know, and not to make light out of it, but the moment we're in now is probably going to change brick and
Right.
mortar retail forever.
Yes. Yeah. In some
So
way. In some way.
yeah, in some way, I don't think those stores will go away forever. But
Yeah.
anyways, I've seen, you know, society kind of
Right.
gradually change towards all these things that
Yeah.
I really didn't anticipate.
Well, and it's
I
also,
just
you know,
never
you're
know
doing.
when.
I mean, you're sort of like on the cusp of a lot of those changes, you know, and being like, you know, as being a guitarist, but you're like, you know, and that's a band. A guitar is a band instrument, right? It has a bandwidth that it occupies and a position on the stage, you know, and you were kind of like, well, that's, you know, but that's you're like, that's not where I'm coming from. I'm not part of a band. I'm a solo performer, composer, and you know, and you're kind of like, I mean, I guess traditionally like a folk musician with an acoustic guitar, but you're like, no, my sonic palette and my is way beyond that.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that it's kind of like, you know, the sort of like this the technology enables this individual to be so, you know, powerful, and but like how do we even make sense of that power? And that's what all this stuff is about. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Well put.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I'm
Speaking of
just
power, this has
yeah.
nothing to do. Total non sequitur. But do you remember the
Oh,
Power Glove?
the power glove. Did you use
This
that
is
in
in the like.
performances?
No, I have. I modified one of these actually with a livid brain, and gave that to an artist.
Nice.
Um, but that one remains to be hacked. It's in the 2 hack pile.
All right.
Uh,
So yeah, so this is like all of this stuff was like, you know, that we've gone through is like the stuff that you've sort of performed with and or done as a result of your performances, but what you're standing at now is the no, the Jambox. Jambox?
yeah. Well, as
Okay,
a
so
collection, I call them jam boxes, as in
right.
they're like things
So
that enable jams.
tell us about this interface because it's clearly not something you put in your backpack. So what is this
No,
about?
ironically, this one's called the Mini Masher. But if you see the
This
two
is
that
the small
preceded
one.
it, you'll understand. The first one is 400 pounds. It comes in a custom road case that demands nothing smaller than a minivan or a pickup truck to move, and it's like an 8-channel sound system. And anyways, it's ridiculous. So that and the second one that I've sold are gone, and this is the third conceptual instrument in the Jambox line, and it's really fun. This one is the most kind of like instantly gratifying, I think, of any of the ones I've designed, and the concept kind of goes back to the art I started experiencing at Burning Man beginning in 2003 when I went there for the first time. And there's just so much kind of communal art and interactive art, things that you need multiple people and you need to like actually play with to kind of complete the thing. And that got me really interested in like, what could I do with that sort of palette? And I started building these things, kind of inspired by my performances, you know, taking the actual performance tools that I use, which is kind of like subtle, slightly geeky things. Like you have a bunch of pads and you have a little XY pad, you know, and you can assign them to do literally anything. And you have some ridiculously powerful computer in here running ridiculously powerful software, and it's up to you. It's up to you, the artist, to make the choices as to like what to control with what. So that is really the art inside these things that ties to my performance, and that's something I think we can show in depth a little later. But to explain what it actually is, it's three-sided instruments. It's really three of these hacked up pad controls, and there's kind of distributed musical functions. So this one is like a bass synth kind of thing. This one's melodic and harmonic. This one's rhythmic. And they all are running on the same clock. It's Ableton Live under the hood. They all have some like subtle, rhythmic and harmonic intertwining things. Like the bass has a little bit of a sample and hold rhythmic thing going on if you hold a note. It's kind of subtle, but there's a
right
in there. There's a nice little dialed quarter note.
Yeah.
Delay thing there. And the drums, you don't actually trigger loops, you're just unmuting loops. So there's loops continuously going, and you just choose which and when to unmute them.
Okay.
So you can kind of like re-rhythmicize them.
Right, it's just like a DJ's crossfader in that regards.
That's a perfect analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have the touch pads, which will either like add more rhythm or let you add more tonality to the rhythmic instrument, turn it into like a scratching sound. So they add this kind of expressiveness and flexibility that you don't have with just the pads. So it's like really simple in presentation, as in it's just things you hit and things you can modify that sound with. But the possibilities when people discover it and play it, and even just the fact that like, you have some velocity sensitivity in your pads, and when you have 16 drum loops, and you can like pick and choose little bits of all of them or play all 16 at the same time. You get really like abstract. One of my friend Sarth played this thing. He used to play with Leonard Cohen. Yeah, I can't remember. And he approaches it more like free jazz, which you can totally do, or you can just be like,
you just broke it. You crashed it.
Doesn't normally happen. No. I think I kicked the power cord actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the Doom power. So, but it's all self-contained. It's like ultimately that's all you have to do is you plug it in, because it has everything's wired in. It has speakers. It has amplifiers. It has the computer.
Yeah, it's even got a table. This is a custom table made in collaboration with a local artist.
Oh,
that
cool.
Has a subwoofer underneath. I'll give you a little.
Oh, okay.
Can't get any closer.
Yes, you gotta have the sub.
Super short, but there's. Can you see any of this? Yeah, there's a sub down there, and yeah, beautiful furniture. Who knew controllerism would lead to furniture design?
Yeah, I know. It's funny because it's just like there's this race to make things as inexpensive as possible, and ultimately you're trying to. Your customer is someone who like values, that expression and beauty in these things, and so it's like your guitars. It's just like you don't need all that stuff on an electric guitar, but all those curves and everything, say something.
Yeah. Aesthetics matter.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like with these industrial controls, it's just like you don't, sometimes it's cool to look like, you're controlling a power plant or whatever. But other times it's just like, well, I don't want to necessarily have to do that. So, So that's all in Ableton Live. Do you have other gadgets that you kind of wanted to share with us, or should we?
That's a pretty good overview.
Okay.
Maybe I'll talk about, you mentioned the playable packaging thing. We mentioned that at the end, because I'm doing a soldering workshop, speaking of like all this
Right.
reconfiguration and pivoting that we're having to do because of our international circumstance. I'm doing hands-on soldering workshop in 3 weeks, 2 weeks from now, that
Oh,
I have
okay.
people involved in. So
Cool.
I will teach you how to solder, but we can talk about that later.
All right. So yeah, let's see. So one of the things that it was funny because it's like this is a Sensel Morph live stream. Where's the Sensel Morph and all of this? And I think we do have to. Moldover has been, so he's been doing a lot of installation work, and so he has like kind of a project that he's not. He's contractually bound to not discuss. So unfortunately we can't really get into the specifics of that, but we could probably get into some of the sort of basic idea of what you have. Is that right?
Yeah, totally.
Is that what we decided?
that is totally legit. I can't wait to tell you about it because it's actually like, I don't want to say like the coolest thing I've ever worked on, but I could say that and not feel like I was being dishonest. It is incredibly cool, and it features Sensel morphs. So you'll just have to wait. Probably until the end of 2020, maybe longer.
Yeah, I know. We're all just going to be dying to like come together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. So it's like you're the single person playing that 3-person instrument.
So lonely.
So
no,
tragic.
I have. Yeah, I'm fortunate. I have my girlfriend here, and I have housemates. So maybe we'll do another live stream with the proper jam.
Oh, that would be great. So yeah, I guess we could talk about more stuff. There's also the Ableton Live aspect of your sort of embedded instrument there. You're rather than you didn't go the Raspberry Pi route or use hardware. You're like, I'm just going to use the tool I know. Are you running on like a Mac Mini?
Yeah, there's a Mac Mini in the Mini Masher.
Yeah, and so that's basically your sound engine, which is.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my mentors is Roger Lynn, and he wrote a great like 2-page article on like, I think he called it "How to Go Broke Prototyping Your Musical Instrument Idea," something ironic like that. But the gist of it is like, ideas are cheap. If you really want to make the thing, but like find out what other people have done and like build on that and make the thing as quickly and cheaply, and get to like 80-90% of your vision using stuff that already exists and some creativity, and then you can see if the idea you have is like really awesome and really cool, and if people really want it or if you really want it.
Yes.
So that's why like it's like, yeah, I could learn how to do real audio coding and put a Raspberry Pi in there, and and as you said, that would be much more slicker like presentation, like make it small, make it elegant, but I'd have to do so much more low level work, where Ableton is a tool that can just like
and it's like
so many battles.
You do it and it works and it's done. And
yeah
because it's like and in the end it's like, well, this is costing you maybe $400, and it's like, but for you to do the other route, it would cost you like $10,000 in time. So
time, yeah, precisely.
So sometimes you just gotta go with the solution. But yeah, so obviously, from the sort of like the Sensel perspective, how one of the things that we've done with the Morph is enabled the sort of DIY controller. So this is and again, this is part of like my sort of product history, because with Livid, that's what we were really, that was definitely sort of the genesis of what we were doing, and we were doing like first like really kind of bespoke controllers like your Mojo. We had the very first like multiple unit Livid controller was like this big wooden thing, and it was designed for video. It wasn't designed for really audio. And it was built around, I believe, Behringer. No, around Dopfer's like original DIY MIDI stuff. And and then it was like
prototype Mojo.
Right. Okay. And then and then we sort of we're like, well, we need to keep. We're like, we think this is cool. We know there's got to be a lot of other people think this is cool. We boiled that down to a circuit board called the Livid Brain. And so that was just like a kind of a complete thing where you could just plug in buttons and sensors and do a little bit of circuitry, but it really reduced the sort of the barrier to entry to building a control surface, that, an electronic control surface for artists and for media. And then we did like sort of a really small version, the Brain V2 or the Brain Junior, and then so then that business kind of went south, and so I was
I'll just say
work and what's that?
That's I just want to interject that the Brain became my platform. Like that was the first system I felt confident enough that like I can build these things and sell them. So that was the platform that enabled me to make the Mojos that I sold copies of. That's the Brain that was in the controller made for Bass Nectar, for the Power Glove mod I mentioned earlier, like a whole bunch of them. So it's like, I'm sure it wasn't a successful product, but it
was reasonably successful.
And these other,
no, it was reasonably successful. It was a good business for us, but and the other thing is it enabled us to build other products. So it was kind of like the Brain was sort of the common component for all the things that we did. So whether it was like, here, I'll go get a couple things here. I'll do some sharing.
Yay.
Whether it was the block.
Oh, yeah.
Or
I like the block.
The Control R, which is my personal favorite.
The Ruchi signature controller.
And I see Laura Escadez in the house, so I apologize. Hopefully the dust won't come through on the stream, but the Ohm RGB. Laura Escadez being one of our great champions for that. I mean, it enabled us to sort of iterate all of those different products because they all had the same circuit in them, basically. And now all of my cables are completely tied up here, so. All right, let's not hurt anything. So yeah, anyway, the point I was getting to is like it brings me no end of joy that the Morph is this sort of not only flexible in that that you can have the different overlays, but you can actually totally customize it. And so that was kind of like, yes, somehow there was I knew that this universe would come together where you would be using the Morph somehow. So
I didn't know. I was doubtful. I was like, gee, whatever. I'm always skeptical of new things. As much as I might be an innovator, like whenever anybody puts a new tool in front of me, I'm always like, well, what can I really do with that? Have you made something that enables my creativity and will let me do something I really want to do, or are you just solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved? So the Morph is kick-ass, and it solves a problem I had not long after I first saw it.
And what problem was that? I mean, was it just the being able to customize a UI, or was it more than that? Like,
it's the customization and the durability. So like in the context of the Jambox, where like that thing was installed at the Tech Museum in San Jose for 6 months, and I did really well, except the time when they were like, hey, can you come and fix this thing? And I had to like replace, somebody poured Coke or some other like sugary beverage like in the device, and that shorted out some circuitry and whatever. So durability is a factor in those things, and with stage instruments, to be honest. Like when I started working with it, I was like, geez, I want to stick one of these on the guitar. Might be a little bit bulky, but like just the form factor of it would make it really easy to attach to a guitar, and the ability to make custom masks. I mean, that's funny, like the two ideas that percolated in my mind were talking with you at Loop, where you gave me like this fully extensive, in-depth Morph demo, and you were like, you could make your own overlays, you could make a mask that uncovers only the parts you need to touch, and I was like, oh, interesting. And then it's Tim Thompson, the local artist here, who's built his own crazy Jambox, as I refer to it, called the Sound Palette. And he is a multi-touch junkie, so he just loves any multi-touch sensor going back pre-iPad. And he has been raving about them more for like 3 years, or whenever he first got them. He has a stockpile. He's like, I bought like 15 of these things just in case, you never know. And
he's always afraid he's always afraid we're gonna get acquired by like a bigger company, because that is sort of his big curse, because Ilya Rosenberg, who's one of the co-founders of Sensel, originally had this company called TouchCo, and TouchCo came up with this multi-touch technology that Tim Thompson was like, yes, this is what I need. And this similar, Roger Lynn, I think, had the same experience. And then Ilya sold it to Amazon, he, and so then Tim was like, but no, I need that, because Amazon just kind of killed the product. So, but fortunately, Morph is still going strong, and he's still doing the space palette. I see here in the comments, Tim Thompson is joined here. Lovely to see you, Tim. The space palette, not sound palette. Get it right, dude.
Did I say sound palette?
I guess so. I don't think Tim's wrong.
That's space.
But yeah, if people want to learn more about this, the space palette, we did a feature on him very early on, because he was like one of our earliest adopters, and he made the space palette with 4 morphs, and it's this stunning like audio visual experience. And again, yeah, it's a collaborative public electronic music instrument, similar to some of the things that you're doing. So yeah, and I think it's kind of that Bay Area Burning Man collaboration, because he's also very much been influenced by Burning Man experiences too. So yeah, I think it was awesome. So yeah, immediately I was like, we need to do a little mini documentary about you. So
cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So yeah, so you're doing like custom interfaces with it, and that's about all we can say. And hopefully it made your life easier.
It did, yeah.
No soldering
it's awesome.
required.
No, I was initially gonna like do custom printed PCBs with capacitive sensors on them, and then the budget got cut a little bit in the project, and I was like, what would make this easier? Oh, Tim's idea, Peter's idea. Do it with morphs, and yeah, it's awesome. Cool. I mean, the durability is what's amazing about them. I think I haven't put them through all the stress tests. Have you tried to break one? I mean, I've tried like a little bit, but have you actually broken a morph?
No, I haven't. We did full disclosure, there was a post on our forum, the first one I've ever seen, where someone had an issue with the plastic. Was like, I think probably a failure of adhesive or something like that on it. And so there was like a bubble in the plastic. But I've never seen that. I've taken these things all over the place. Yeah, the black, the PET layer on the very top. But Tim has probably done some of the most abusive stress testing, because he's taken those things all over the place and had lots of kids,
They're good at
it. Lots of dusty hands and things like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But yeah, so then the other thing I wanted to sort of like turn people onto was the fact that you are using live for an installation rather than, I mean, you obviously use it for your performances, and you use it for producing your music and your tracks for albums, but you're also using it for installation. And so I kind of wanted to I'm losing my voice here, plug in and see what your set looks like for the Jamboxes, and you had some interesting things to share there. So
yeah, so I'll just show people from this camera what I'm controlling, just for fun. So I just threw one of my Morph overlays on here, and this is controlling the same Ableton set that the mini masher is controlling. So it's the same software running on my laptop in front of me here, and I got the drums and the keys and the bass.
Okay.
Which I just love. I mean, I took this thing to Banff. That was the first time after I got them that I got to use it for a non-installation purpose, and it was like, oh, this is an incredibly compact way to have tactile and PE flexible interface. So what am I doing? I'm going to share
your screen. And I think I'm gonna let's see, I need to go to, I think if I just double click on you maybe. Oh, perfect. Look at that.
The dual view. Still see controllers.
We're just tiny people. Tiny boxes.
Tiny boxes.
All right.
So yeah, I thought it'd be fun to show you a little bit of the Ableton set inside there, because a lot of people want to know. And some of the cool tips and tricks I think I can share. I mean, you have to be an Ableton geek to get this stuff, but
this is going in an archive, so the geeks will find this and they will want this.
Okay, so one of the coolest tricks, or the thing I get most commonly, is people want to do that drum thing. Like, how do you make it so there's loops playing and you can? Because that's
Right.
actually what I do in performance a lot. Is like I'm playing back a song I've pre-composed, but I'm kind of re-articulating it with arcade buttons and stuff. So a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people want to do that. And coolest way I found to do that with Ableton. Ableton has this weird limitation where note messages that you typically send from a pad controller or a keyboard aren't going to let you do momentary things with volume. Like you could just map your note message to turn the volume of a track up and turn it back down, but Ableton won't ever let you do that the way you want. It's always going to be like a toggle and you have to press it twice. So the
Yeah.
workaround I found for that is basically to use Ableton's gate devices. So hopefully you can see in the lower left-hand corner, this is Ableton's gate. It just gates off audio below the threshold. So I have a drum loop playing continuously on this track. It's going into this gate device, and the gate has the sidechain feature. So it can take audio from somewhere else. So instead of gating it based on the sound of this drum loop, this gate device is gating based on a totally different track. Over here, there's a drum rack. So these are 16 little samplers. And here's the one for this track. And it just plays noise. And you can't hear the noise. You can see it here to the right, right?
Yeah.
So you can see the playback head move. But what you hear is the drum loop. And that's because when I play this, it's opening the gate based on the sidechain.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Funny workaround, right?
That is funny. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, you're just using audio rate signals to control audio and it works. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is like, if anybody is looking for a definition, like a Webster illustration of a hack, this is a this is a good one.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that works and
Yeah.
it's fun and I do that in my own performances and it's a weird hack. And I actually made feature requests to Ableton. I've never done that, but about a year ago I was like, there's like 3 things, like a whole bunch of my gigs are even built on stuff like this, where it's like
Yeah.
people can't figure out how to do this stuff. They just don't know as well, or they're not as like tweaky as I am. And so I'm doing this, or like making a little Max widget, to solve a problem that an artist has. And like a few of them are just like, man, we should just do this after all this time.
Work. Yeah.
Like let you switch between toggle and momentary modes, and then you wouldn't have to do this weird workaround. Anyway, so that's a cool trick. So that's why there's 16 tracks, and they're all playing an audio clip here.
Okay, so
16 drum loops.
And then you can launch a scene to just basically change sort of the preset, I guess.
Yeah. So there's 3 presets. I didn't show you actually, but the knob in the center of the mini masher scrolls between 3 different complete presets made by their local artists, Rich DDT and B1.
Nice.
Both made sets.
Oh, okay.
So these aren't actually my loops. These are like my favorite break beats. I mean, you probably that's definitely not if you know your music. That's not my loop.
Right.
And I kept them in there, so it's a little bit of appropriation. And I don't know where Rich DDT's and B1's loops came from, but here are some Rich DDT's loops. It's some of B1's.
So just by turning that knob, you're changing the scene, which is essentially the preset on the Jambox.
It changes.
Yeah,
it changes the sounds on the bass and the lead keyboard sounds.
Right.
And it puts different effects in there, so it's a completely different experience. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'll do with Max. This is actually one of my like earliest Max for Live patches, which is a little widget that like listens to that knob in the center of the mini masher and triggers scenes.
Triggers the scene change, yeah.
Yeah.
Because because the other thing you would have, the only other way to do it really would be to, program the firmware so that it would send a note at specific positions, because you can only trigger scenes with notes, really. So yeah, that's where Max for Live in Ableton is just, I mean, it's like some of those things you're like, oh, it should just work. But yeah, this is not something that not a feature anybody's going to put in their software. It's so specific, but it's it's so great that Max is in there so that you can solve that problem. And
Yeah,
it's yeah. You can
and it
just dial
works.
it up and
It works well.
yeah, it worked great.
I think the only tip I thought to, well, I could show you some mapping things, but I think another cool one is people just don't know how to do like multi-channel audio in Ableton. I've been doing
Right.
it for a while. I used to live at a space that Not Human had
Oh,
with
I know the space.
yeah, it was
Because
like,
I used to work there in the late 90s.
oh no, I never was at the original Recombinant Media Labs. Is that what you're talking
Oh,
about?
yeah, yeah, yeah. The
No, I was at
compound.
the compound, yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a 16.8 channel
Yeah.
surround system.
Yeah.
And so I was using Ableton to do stuff there. Anyways, it's all just about sends. So it's a lot of like sends and returns, but and they're not the way they were when I opened the set, but basically you can just use sends to do these custom mixes of multi-channel systems. And that's one
Yes.
of the most interesting things about these jam boxes actually is like the first one was an 8-channel thing. This is a 3.1 system. Now I'm doing things with stereo, and there's all these interesting ways you can kind of mix sound such that it's like, it's like the thing, it's the instrument. You want to be able to hear what you're playing, and so you can kind of spatialize it, put the drums
Mm-hmm.
closer to the person who's playing that instrument. But,
Right.
you can have other speakers that are playing to audience. And it's also
Oh, wow,
interesting to have
cool.
this like reverse surround where there's like a thing in the center projecting out sound everywhere. So
Yeah,
anyways,
that's really interesting because I would have never really just visually, just sort of doing like a quick sort of like what is this Jambox about? I wouldn't have really like necessarily it would have taken a while to just think like, oh wait, this is multi-channel. Right? Because it's like I think and that's a detail that I think probably a lot of installation people would just be like, well, then we just have all this stuff play out through speakers. And you're like, no, multi-channel this, right? And it's like, and that's a great application of multi-channel because it's like, yeah, multi-channel isn't just about like, yeah, the Not Human 2014, 16.8 channel or Dolby Atmos or, these big powerful experiences. It's like, no, multi-channel is something that can be done in a more intimate level and requiring not something doesn't require like necessarily like a big setup. It's just something that you do for an individual, but that way you can all run it all from one machine and you don't have to be just bound to two channels stereo. But I think Ableton Live, like Live 10, has multi-channel stuff that's much more sophisticated. I was going to be doing a multi-channel workshop at Super Booth with Bitwig, and and so I had like this whole thing, and again it was using the sends, and I think that's kind of a common way to do it, and just kind of any software. So whatever DAW you're using, I think if you're trying to think about like, well, how do I do multi-channel out, like sends are usually going to be the tool that you're going to use. And yeah, Bitwig was nice because I did do, it was pretty easy to route things to the sends. And I was really missing Max for Life though, because I was like, oh, I just want to do this one thing, and I couldn't. But they do have a nice programming environment called the Grid that allowed me to actually calculate. I could do lookup tables and calculate the panning, so it wasn't just straight up linear panning. I could actually do proper equal power panning to the speakers and do things on an individual channel, and then I could modulate and fly things around through the stuff. So it was definitely a very powerful creative tool. But yeah, there were things that I just wanted to because I had the Morph involved, so I just had like 10 different sounds that I could use my fingers to spatialize them in the room, just move them around on the pad. It was just like that's it was almost too simple and too dumb. But then I could also attach LFOs and stuff like that to automate certain sounds if I wanted to do rhythmic spatialization. Just that's the kind of stuff you can do in Max for Live. Like some of the interaction stuff is easier. Like the modulation stuff in Bitwig is a lot easier.
yeah.
So, but cool. So yeah, so you're doing a soldering workshop. That's an online soldering workshop? We're coming up on an hour, and I think that's a good time capsule time for this. So is there any other stuff that you want to update people on? I know you're active on the Patreon, and we have a link to that in all of our communications.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to plug the soldering workshop. I don't know, because it's I went to pick up some equipment from a friend of mine who's sadly leaving the city, and had to kind of liquidate his whole apartment really quick. And it's just super surreal. Like we're pretty much staying home. We're like, you don't need to go out. You're not going out.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it was just a weird experience seeing somebody in person and not being able to like give them a hug, wearing masks, like trying to avoid hanging out in this apartment too long, like which is just the opposite of all the things like I want to instinctively do.
Yeah.
So, anyways, in the age of all this streaming and stuff, I thought it'd be cool to still do like a hands-on kind of workshop. And I teach soldering workshops. This is one of the things I will do at those residencies or tours in between shows. Sorry, I'm detangling myself.
Yeah, I understand.
So yeah, I have kits for these. This is a light theremin CD, my first album.
Right.
Packaged.
It has circuitry embedded in the. It's just so awesome.
So like,
whatever happened to Cyberpunk, man?
I don't know. Close to the microphone, maybe. Anyways, it's a fun little synthesizer that reacts to light. You can plug in headphones or a sound system to record it or amplify it. And it's a really good way to learn to solder because it's only got, as you can see, about 11 components or something. So you can make it in a couple of hours, even if you've never soldered before. And I haven't taught soldering workshop by live stream before, but
I don't think
how hard could it be?
Not too many people have. I mean, at least nobody's going to burn you with their iron by, You don't have to sign any release forms because it's like, this isn't my spot, So, but that's cool. I mean, like that's another thing that I always loved about like your releases. Like you have like you made the like in the age of like vinyl fetishism because it's like it's all about the material. You're like, well, especially when you were doing albums, like vinyl has come down in like accessibility for artists, I think to some degree. But so you're making a material like a materially worthwhile thing, and it's like. It's not the same experience as an LP. It's like, but it has that, germ of like, oh, I can spend time with this material with my hands, and it counts, because it's like, CDs like have been a bother to me for a long time, but that would be a CD I would keep, So yeah, and same thing with the Octomaster. Yeah. Or the voice crusher.
Voice crusher.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes.
You can of course download the music if you're not in the CDs. But anyways, that's on my Facebook artist page. So search for me on Facebook, Moldover, and
all right.
It'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, hey, anything else?
I don't think so. I'm doing live streams every Tuesday and Thursday. All kinds of interesting characters and
all right,
edutainment.
All right, cool.
I like to call it. So, yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, hey,
I'll jump on the chat. I haven't been watching any of.
I've just been seeing a little bit, and I think one of my colleagues has been popping in a little bit. So we're not completely abandoning all of the fans. So, yeah, awesome. Hey, it was great to talk to you, and it's always wonderful to see you. And hopefully, one day we can actually hug.
One day soon, yeah. Yeah, this is super fun. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Cool. All right. Well, take care, and we look forward to your next work.
Likewise.
All right.
Thank you, Peter.
All right. Take care.